How good can a $2,500 sweater really be? This was a question I asked on Instagram, and then I did an extremely thorough deep dive, more than 5 hours of research into alternatives to figure out if I could find a more affordable alternative that gives you the same feeling, the essence of the Rose Ophelia sweater, which, yes, for the sake of research, I 100% did place an order for because I had to know, is it as good as everyone says it is? I think it's really hard in this day and age when you're looking on social media and you see people hyping certain products up. Quite often I've found that they've never lived up to the hype when I've actually gotten my hands on them, and I've come away feeling really disappointed. But it's not just that, it's the fact that I truly believe that you can find good quality at every price point. You just have to know what to look for. And I'm also very aware that there are diminishing returns in terms of the quality that you're getting at that price. A $2,500 sweater is not going to be 10 times better than a $250 sweater. Also, for context, I will be speaking in Australian dollar terms in this video, so I will be sure to put the USD conversion rate as it stands today on screen and in the description box, as the numbers do vary as a result of that. Now, I thought this could be a really good companion piece to my best basics videos that I have filmed in the past, and those were based on months and months and months of research, wear and tear. So this is going to be more of a top line approach based on my first assessments, my first-hand impressions of the item, but I hope that you will find this helpful nonetheless. And quite often what I've found is that it's either the more affordable or the mid-range item that tends to shine, and I have some really surprising results. And to give you a little bit of a backstory as to how this question even popped up in my mind, I decided for my birthday this year I wanted to treat myself to a really luxurious version of an item I know I wear a lot. And there are a handful of things in my wardrobe that fit in this category, and eventually I settled on knitwear. And there wasn't anything specific, but I knew from experience that a grey sweater, something that was really relaxed, was kind of my go-to. And I'd seen a lot of people espousing the greatness of the Ophelia, and I wanted to kind of test it out for myself, see, is this a sweater? Is this what I'm seeking from a knitwear piece? Because maybe it's not, but what that will do is inform my decision moving forward. And the only way to really know is to try something on. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to try on the sweater. We're going to talk about the details, the things that I think are really key identifying characteristics of the Ophelia, which are kind of going to serve as the benchmark as to how we assess and rate each of the other sweaters that I've found. I have done an entire Substack where I actually pulled together 11 alternatives, all bar one, which were under $1,000 Australian, mind you. So I will link that down below as well in case you'd like to go and have a read. The one that many people have actually recommended, but I chose not to buy for a very specific reason, was the Marin sweater from Laline. And this looks absolutely beautiful, but it has a very slim sleeve. And I wanted something that was slouchy through the sleeve to mimic the style and kind of that effortless feeling of the one from the Row. I also couldn't get my hands on the COS version, which is 100% cashmere. So that's actually going to differ wildly from the knits that I have here, which are all wool predominant, as in sheep or lamb's wool. So let's talk about the Ophelia first. So this comes in at 2,680 Australian dollars, which is just a stupid amount of money to spend on one item, whether it's a handbag or it's a sweater or a coat, anything like that. This is absolutely not even close to what I would usually spend on a singular item in my wardrobe, and it kind of just makes me tighten up a little bit inside just thinking about it. So the key features of this sweater are that it has this kind of thick, puffy ribbed collar that almost bounces out slightly. It kind of stands on its own around the neck. It has this predominant center seam detail, which is really lovely, a thick ribbed hemline. It's very straight cut through the body from the shoulder seam all the way down to the hem, but you'll see it tapers in ever so slightly, and this is very, very subtle. The defining feature of the sweater, I would say, is actually the sleeve. So it has a very visible kind of cocoon sculpted shape to it, and there's also some really beautiful knitting on the underside of the sleeve. The sleeves come to around knuckle length on me. I am wearing a size small, and all bar one I'm wearing a size small, so I will be sure to reference which one I'm not. The composition is a blend. It's 65% wool. There's no specification on the type of wool that they've used, and then 35% cashmere. And so what this does is it has the qualities of wool, which is going to have a bit more structure to it. Then it also has some of those luxurious qualities of cashmere, including some of the softness. And it is quite a thick ply as well in terms of the weight of the knit. So that is the Ophelia. You will see that it does also hit, I would say just below my hip, below my widest point, so a really good contender for wearing it loose. And I think the really important questions to ask when you are seeking out a more affordable alternative is, what is it that you love about the original? For me, it is the puffy ribbed collar. I think that is such a lovely detail. And also the sleeves, the fact that they have this kind of cocooned element, they feel kind of sculptural. My Everlane alpaca knit and also a cashmere sweater I have from there, they have this sort of sleeve detail and I'm incredibly drawn to it. So yeah, consider this the dissection of a really expensive sweater. So we're going to run through least expensive to most expensive, and I'm going to talk through the differences, and at the end I'm going to rank them and I'll show you where on the scale I think they all fall. So first alternative that we have here is from Dish, and I did have a few people recommend Dish, but the knits they sent me were synthetic blends, and this is an absolute no-no for me. For one, I don't love wearing synthetic knitwear. It is not going to last anywhere near as long as a 100% natural fiber knit, but also if you're looking for something that is really truly luxurious, it's probably going to be in a natural fiber, not in a synthetic blend, and that was one of my key criteria for this. So this is not grey. I did decide to relax my search a little bit, and while I was originally set on a grey sweater, at the end of my 5-hour foray on Google into finding alternatives, I thought it mattered not so much, but I have a very specific grey in mind. Anyway, this one is navy. It is a blend of cotton and merino. So it's 70% cotton and 30% merino wool. So this doesn't feel anywhere near as luxurious as a wool does, but it also has more of a smoother feel on the hand. So if you are someone who is very sensitive, then this might be a quality that you are actually seeking out. So a cotton and merino wool blend will probably be more suited for you. This lacks the back seam detail, but what it does have is a visible seam here on the sleeve and also a rolled hemline. So one of the things I liked about the rose one is it does have that thick ribbed hem. It does have kind of a relaxed sleeve, but it doesn't have that balloon cocooned shape. And I would say that these are more relaxed too. They feel very long on the hand, definitely longer than the Ophelia. This one is $200. I'm wearing it in the size small, and I think that this is very, very nice. It does come in a couple of other colors, including a beautiful chocolate brown and also an olive hue, which I think might be a little bit tricky to pull off depending on your coloring. I have an olive complexion, so I definitely steered clear of that. I think the blue is lovely. It has a bit of an electric blue undercurrent to it, but ever so slightly desaturated, which I like. The length of it is very similar to the Ophelia, and I would say that it does taper in slightly towards the hemline, probably a little bit more so than the Ophelia does. So that is sweater number one. Then we have sweater number two, and this one I was shocked when I found this. This is from Sold Out NYC. So this one is 570 Australian dollars. This is 100% wool, so it doesn't have any kind of cashmere in it to soften the wool, but it actually feels very soft on the hand. So it has that kind of tactile quality that you expect from a woolen sweater, but it doesn't feel itchy to me. So I assume it's been treated or pre-treated with something to really help to soften those fibers. This is very similar in terms of the cut to the Ophelia. It does have that straightness from the shoulder all the way down to the hemline that tapers ever so slightly. This is the only one out of the alternatives that I have here which does feature that back seam. It also has the really nice puffy collar, and when you look at the sleeves, these are exaggerated, more so than the Dish one, but they still don't have that cocoon shape. But otherwise, I would say that this is very, very similar. This is very close in terms of the fit. It's just that sleeve element that you're missing out on. Now, I couldn't get my hands on this in a size small, so I had to order it in a medium. I'm 172 centimeters or 5'8" for height reference, and I'm usually US 4 or else an Australian size 8. So this is pretty relaxed on me, I will say, but I think when you're wearing an oversized sweater, there's very much of a muchness between two sizes. It's maybe going to be an inch or so difference, and it's not going to make much of an impact. It would be more jumping up 2 or 3 sizes. So that doesn't bother me too much, though I think you're going to be better placed if you can order your true size. If you are petite with these first 3 knits you probably want to size down because you're going to find it a lot of fabric, a lot of volume, and you need to be able to balance that out. This does have a decent amount of structure, but it is quite soft and malleable in the hand, so it doesn't have that same weight as the Ophelia, but it's still very thick. So this is actually slightly thinner, which probably helps contribute to that lower price point. So that is the Sold Out NYC knit. It does come in a few other colors too. There is an ecru and then a charcoal gray. So my criteria for gray was that I wanted something that was more of a medium to light gray. I wanted it to be neutral or slightly warm leaning ideally. Don't want anything that is too icy or too cool. So the closest in terms of grey sweaters that I could find were from Navy Grey, and I had quite a few people recommend this brand to me, and I'd actually really been wanting to try them out for a long time, so this felt like a really good opportunity. We're going to start with the more affordable of the two first, and this is actually the least like the Ophelia of all of these sweaters. So this is called their Winter Weekend Sweater. I've got it in the grey, and it does have that same kind of doubled over puffy collar. The wool on this, so it is 100% lamb's wool, is the most raw textured out of all of them. It's still soft, but there is that woolen texture to it. The raw Ophelia does feel softer on the hand than this one here, but in terms of the color, I mean, it is similar, but it's also different at the same time. So you can see it's ever so slightly darker, and I don't know how well this is translating on camera, but this is the navy gray one. It's ever so slightly cooler too. And I am going to do a comparison with my current most worn gray winter knit, which is from Jenny Kane. It's a very thin cotton blend sweater which has a lot of drapiness to it, so that you can see the difference, because that one is neutral to warm leaning. The Row Ophelia does look slightly cool against it, but this looks a little bit too icy. So that's kind of a color comparison. And if that's something that's important to you, definitely something to keep in mind. It's actually one of the reasons why, in addition to the fact that it's 100% cashmere, I ruled out the COS sweater, because it looks really cool toned, especially in video. And the Leline one does look like it leans more cool too, just for reference. I do think that COS is 100% cashmere knits. The chunky ones are phenomenal quality, and if you want something that feels really soft, really luxurious, 100% go and buy one of those, because you will be more than satisfied. They hold up really nicely. You just need a wool comb to get rid of any pilling that you experience. So let's talk about the sleeves, which you can see are the slimmest of the bunch. The oversized from Navy Grey is also very similarly cut. These are bracelet length, or maybe ever so slightly shorter, and I think as someone who is taller, perhaps, my arms, they feel a little bit too long for this knit, and I think the fit through the body is fine, but the sleeve length is just ever so slightly too short for me, and it completely rules out both of these knits for me, because in every other way they're really, really nice. They're beautiful quality, but what I was seeking was something that was very slouchy, and I instantly realized that was what I wanted from my knit when I tried on the Ophelia and also all of the other alternatives. The other thing I like about this is that if you are more petite, I think this is a great way that you can still achieve that look, because this is probably going to hit you at a similar place than the Ophelia would. And this is a really important question here about proportions, and thinking about the proportions of an item that you're buying and how that's actually going to look on you versus how it's intended to look on the model and how you actually want it to look. So the Ophelia, for me, it hits just below my hip, kind of at my crotch, and all of the other sweaters that I have here do the same thing, whereas this one hits a lot higher on the hip. Whereas if you're a couple of inches shorter than me, you're probably going to find that this hits you at that same point, just at the bottom of the crotch, at the bottom of the hip. So something to note, really, really beautiful. I can't remember if I mentioned the price, but this one is $665. So definitely getting into that more premium price point. This one here is a size small. I did notice also that the sleeves on this are different. So this is a very classic sleeve where the seam runs from the bottom of the underarm to the collar, as opposed to more of a dropped shoulder. So that's also something to keep in mind too. So that is really where this one differs. Then we go on to the oversized, which is one that was recommended a lot. And I think this has a great fit through the body. It really does mimic that feel of the Ophelia through the body. But again, it has those really slim sleeves. So good if you prefer something that is going to be tighter fit through the sleeves. If you can't be bothered with oversized sleeves, you're going to love this. This one here retailed for, I'm just going to check my notes, 875 Australian dollars. They do add taxes and duties at checkout, regardless of whether it is above the customs limit, by the way. So I did want to point that out. Yeah, this is really lovely. It does also have a slightly different shoulder seam here though. So if you look at the first three, so the Ophelia, the Dish, and the Sold Out New York, you'll notice that the seam is actually straight from where it cuts off on the shoulder all the way down to the hemline, even though it tapers in. Whereas this one here, it kind of cuts in and then it goes out and then it cuts in slightly towards the hem. And this is where the minutiae of details become really important, because that's going to impact the way an item sits on you. This does have all the heft though of the Rose Ophelia, so it's going to drape on your body very, very similarly. And again, no back seam on this one either. So if I had to rank all of these sweaters based on the price, quality, and also the design, and I suppose how closely it kind of mimics the Ophelia, and I'm actually going to put this one into the ranking, I think your best bet is actually to go with the Sold Out NYC sweater. This is going to give you such a similar shape. While no, it's not exactly the same as the Ophelia because it doesn't quite have that same sleeve detail, the way that it kind of cuts in and cocoons, I do think that this is going to give you similar enough of a look that you feel like you're capturing that essence, the vibe of the Ophelia. I'd say probably the only downside is it doesn't come in that really lovely grey, but I do think that this is incredible value for money. I think in US dollars this was $370, which I think is definitely getting up there in terms of the price point, but it does feel very reminiscent, very similar. And I did actually message their team on social media just to ask them if they were planning on doing a restock, because I wanted to get a small, and they said they are planning to come out with new colors. So that's quite exciting, something to keep an eye out for next year, especially if you live in the Northern Hemisphere. They do ship internationally on their website, but I bought the sweater from Shopbop. I think they have a few more sizes on their website though. So that is Sold Out NYC. I think great, and definitely a brand that I'm now going to be paying a little bit more attention to. I wasn't familiar with them before this video. It was really hard for me to decide which one to put in second place, and I'm putting this in second place more so for the fact that it captures the vibe, but I wouldn't be buying this for myself as a luxury sweater. So I would be buying this more as just an affordable alternative that is going to give me a similar look. But if I was seeking luxury in my item, this is probably not the one I would be going for. I think it is very nice, and this is something that will last you a long time in your wardrobe if you maintain and look after it well. That said, I think that it's quite cool how it does have that rolled edge detail on the hem, and when you are maybe seeking out those alternatives to designer items, sometimes you want something that feels similar but doesn't feel exactly the same, and this is going to give you that. Also great if you prefer cotton knits over wool, and the price, I mean, $200, I think that is incredibly well priced. In third place, the Rose Ophelia, and for me, so if I was prioritizing luxury over value, this one would go before the Dish sweater. So it really depends on where your priorities lie. But this really is a beautiful sweater, and I can now appreciate and understand why the devotees say it is that good. If you follow me on TikTok or Substack, you'll have heard me talk before about how I don't think a lot of items from the Rose are really truly worth it, and that for the large part you are paying for the brand name. And I would say that yes, definitely that's a huge part of buying the Ophelia, but in the context of looking for a very specific design, none of the other sweaters are exactly the same. And I think if design is your primary concern, then you may find yourself longing and coveting the designer version even after you've bought a less expensive one. So it's worth, I guess, understanding where your priorities lie and really what it is that you're seeking out from a sweater. And honestly, it pained me to realize how much I love this sweater when I tried it on. I even asked my husband, I tried on all the sweaters, I asked him which one he thought looked best, and he said this one. He didn't know the prices of any of these sweaters, he didn't know the context. All I just said is, I'm doing some research on sweaters and expensive sweaters versus more affordable ones, which one do you like most? And I think it was interesting when he said that it reminded him of the types of sweaters that I actually like to wear as well. So that kind of told me I'm definitely on the right page with these more slouchier knits. I would say in fourth place, I would put Navy Grey's oversized sweater. I think this is great if you want that sort of slimmer cut through the sleeves. You don't like oversized sleeves, you're gonna love this because it's gonna give you that same feeling. It has that same heft to the fabric. This is definitely an expensive, luxurious purchase. I also really like the way that items from Navy Grey arrive in a little dust bag. It all feels really quite special to open up one of their products. Another brand that I'm gonna have on my radar. But yeah, I just think that this is really, really lovely. If you do tend to prefer more of a cooler tone grey as well, then I think you'll really jibe with this. I think it's great. And then in last place, I'm going to put the Winter Weekend, just because it doesn't have that length that the Ophelia has, which I think is also part of the appeal. This is really great, as I said, for petites. If you do want to get the Ophelia look, but you don't want to pay the road price point, and also you don't want something that looks stupidly oversized on you but still is relaxed enough. I will link the Laline one down in the description box as well in case you'd like to go and check that one out. It comes in loads of different colors too. I think at the end of the day, it's what you are prepared to pay, and if you're going to wear the item. There's no point spending $2,500 on a sweater for it to sit in your wardrobe and not be worn. You have to be happy paying that, and then happy if it gets grubby or gets a bit worn. It's probably going to pill a little bit over time. I did actually do just like friction resistance on it, and I didn't notice any pilling just from that, but I have heard it does pill, so a good wool comb will really come in handy. But you're going to experience that with any wool sweater, so just something to have in the back of your mind. I wanted to end this on one final thought point. I know this has been a really long video because I wanted to do a proper deep dive, but it was really fascinating to me when I did do a poll and ask, should I buy a less expensive version, or should I, you know, really splurge and buy the designer one? You know, do you think that's worth it? And everyone, I had hundreds of messages from people telling me to just buy the COS one, which very hard to get your hands on if you live in Australia because they have very limited stock compared to Northern Hemisphere. But that fascinated me massively because when I shared the affordable alternative to the Loewe puzzle bag, I had very much the opposite sentiment, that I shouldn't be sharing affordable alternatives to designer bags, when essentially it's the same thing, but it's just a different product category. And I guess it had me wondering, why is it okay to buy a like-for-like version of a apparel item but not okay to buy like-for-like version of a handbag or some other sort of leather good like a shoe? Anyway, curious to know. Let's have a discussion down in the comments section. I want to know which knit you liked best on me, which knit you would spring for if it was you and you had an unlimited budget. And yeah, a huge thank you for coming along. I hope that you found this really informative and that it gave you some food for thought, as well as when it comes to assessing purchases and things that you're planning to bring into your wardrobe. And as you can see, the conversation for me goes far beyond just oversized grey sweater. Anyway, grateful that you decided to spend some of your day with me, especially as this was a long one. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here and you want to see more videos like this from me, please do subscribe. I share brand reviews, styling advice, and also how to maximize your wardrobe. If you would like more comparison videos like this, please do let me know, especially what types of categories you'd like me to cover and if there's any specific products. And yeah, I will see you next week with a brand new video. See you soon. Bye.